In their very first season, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim were a marketing juggernaut that outsold every other team in the league combined, raking in a reported $800 million in merchandise. But what started as a beloved relationship between Duck and Mouse quickly became a nightmare, costing Disney over $100 million. The franchise was hemorrhaging money, and what looked like a corporate masterclass in synergy eventually became one of the most fascinating failed experiments in NHL history. Just over a decade in, Disney walked away from the franchise, selling them off right before the team won its first ever Stanley Cup. So, how did the most powerful entertainment company on earth build a real NHL team in just 2 months, and why did they walk away? In 1992, Disney released the cult classic movie The Mighty Ducks, a film about a group of misfit kids turning their losing youth hockey team into winners. It became an unexpected hit with audiences, grossing over $50 million. But the crazy part? Just over 2 months later, Disney CEO Michael Eisner did the unthinkable, launching an entire sports franchise based around a kids' movie. But Eisner wasn't just looking at box office receipts. As he later told the Los Angeles Times, the film's success served as his, quote, market research. The NHL, eager to expand its footprint in the United States, hadn't explicitly solicited applications for new teams. But when corporate giants like Blockbuster and Disney came calling, the league simply couldn't resist. On December 10th, 1992, the NHL awarded a franchise to blockbuster magnate Wayne Huizenga in Miami and another to the Walt Disney Company in Anaheim. An entrance fee of $50 million was required, with $25 million of that going directly to the Los Angeles Kings, being paid as territorial compensation to allow Disney to share the Southern California market. This marked a significant first, an American sports franchise being created specifically as part of a corporate brand. With the franchise secured, the team needed a name. On March 1st, 1993, at the brand new Anaheim Arena, the team's name was officially announced.
The name of this team is officially the Mighty Ducks.
They would be called the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim after the 1992 film. The name quickly became a laughingstock, drawing widespread criticism for naming a pro franchise after a children's movie, creating the impression of a completely unserious team. Eisner was quick to comment on the criticism, stating, "If we're a very good team, I think it'll be a great name. If we're a very bad team, it will be a bad name. But I welcome the puns." Eisner himself admitted that the name invited mockery, revealing that his harshest critics were actually coming from inside his own home. Beyond the criticism, the name posed a linguistic risk due to its rhyme with a common profanity, a slip of the tongue Eisner barely avoided while presenting a official duck puck to NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman. Even the team's own president, Tony Tavares, wasn't originally on board. He actually begged Eisner to scrap the Mighty Ducks name entirely. However, after witnessing the sheer power of the Disney marketing machine, he softened his stance. He eventually leaned into the absurdity, stating, "When you cut through it, no one is going to refuse to play for us because of our name. I'm looking forward to playing the Pittsburgh Penguins for the Stanley Cup in the Bird Series." Next up was finding the team a home. In 1990, the city of Anaheim made a big roll of the dice when construction began on a sports arena without a dedicated tenant, hoping to lure a major league team in. Both the NBA and the NHL were unwilling to expand to the area at the time, but the city was confident that they could find a team once the arena was built. As the classic movie Field of Dreams once said, "If you build it, he will come." And Anaheim's risky move proved successful, with Disney coming to the city's rescue. Upon being granted an NHL franchise, negotiations between the city of Anaheim and Disney began. They eventually came to terms on a 30-year lease, allowing Disney to choose a name for the new $123 million arena, as long as Anaheim was included either in the name of the building or the team. While the building was originally known as the Anaheim Arena during planning and construction, Disney renamed it the Pond of Anaheim after signing the lease. Much like the team name, this drew immediate criticism for sounding foolish. In October 1993, naming rights were sold to locally based Arrowhead Water for $15 million, then becoming the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim. Fans came to know it simply as the Pond, with the nickname becoming iconic. But eventually, the press conferences ended, the laughter died down, and it came time for Disney to build a team. It started on June 24th, 1993 with the NHL expansion draft, where the Mighty Ducks were able to instantly stock their roster by selecting unprotected players from existing teams. It was a necessary step to build a foundation, but it wasn't where they found their star. Just 2 days later at the NHL entry draft, Disney made their first and perhaps best pure hockey decision. With the 4th overall pick, they selected the great Paul Kariya.
Paul Kariya of the University of Maine.
Correa would be a game changer. He was a legit superstar in the making who would become the first true face of the franchise who wasn't a cartoon character. When the team finally hit the ice for the 1993-94 season, the results were surprisingly competent. Despite having the lowest payroll in the entire NHL at just $7.9 million, the Mighty Ducks managed to win 33 games. They set a record for the most wins by an expansion team, tied with the Florida Panthers, their NHL expansion siblings. Of course, it wasn't all smooth skating. In their very first game, the team introduced a secondary mascot called the Iceman. This was just a person with no costume who played electric guitar in the stands to liven up the crowd. The Iceman was poorly received by fans and was eliminated immediately after the Ducks lost their inaugural game 7-2 to the Detroit Red Wings. Despite the criticism and the gimmicks, the plan actually worked, financially at least. In the 93-94 season, the Mighty Ducks sold out 27 of 41 home games and filled the pond to almost 99% of its season capacity. But the true genius of the operation wasn't selling tickets, it was selling the brand itself. Fueled by their presence in Disney theme parks and Disney stores, the Mighty Ducks merchandise shot to #1 among all NHL clubs. In their very first season, Mighty Ducks merchandise accounted for 80% of the entire NHL's $1 billion in merchandising revenue. In the fall of '95, Orange Coast magazine wrote, "One can't walk the streets in Southern California without seeing the team's logo or its teal and maroon color scheme on a hat, t-shirt, or bumper sticker." The merchandise was quite literally more successful than the team itself. Of course, for Eisner, the Mighty Ducks experiment wasn't just about selling jerseys. It was about building up the actual city where his theme park lived. In 1994, they launched Disney Goals, a nonprofit designed to make ice hockey, which was notoriously the most expensive youth sport in America, completely free for underserved kids in Anaheim. To support it, they built a state-of-the-art twin rink facility known as Disney Ice, which was used for team practices and youth clinics, eventually being completed in 1995. While on the surface this looked like charity, it was actually a brilliant corporate good neighbor strategy. Disney was planning a massive expansion of Disneyland into a resort destination, and they viewed the revitalization of Anaheim as critical to that success. By investing in local youth and infrastructure, Disney wasn't just creating future fans, they were aiming to stabilize the neighborhoods surrounding their theme park, using their new hockey team as the vehicle to do it. Disney leaned hard into what they called synergy. The team's uniforms were featured in the movie sequels D2 and D3 The Mighty Ducks, with the team's star player, Paul Correa, making a cameo appearance in the third film. They then launched an animated series called Mighty Ducks, featuring a fictional Mighty Ducks of Anaheim team consisting of human-like ducks led by Wild Wing, inspired by the team's own mascot. Emboldened by the Mighty Ducks' success, Eisner doubled down on his sports empire, eventually taking full control of the California Angels baseball franchise in 1996, renaming them the Anaheim Angels in a calculated move to market the city itself as a destination, bolstering the value of their Disneyland resort. But back on the ice, the 90s novelty was beginning to wear thin. The movies eventually stopped coming out, the cartoon was canceled, and as the decade rolled on, to keep fans in seats, Disney had to build something they couldn't manufacture in a boardroom, a legitimately competitive hockey team. In February 1996, the team pulled off a blockbuster trade for the Finnish Flash, Teemu Selanne. The chemistry between Selanne and Paul Correa was instant. They were fast, electric, and arguably the most entertaining duo in the entire NHL. For the first time, the team was living up to the movie magic. It all culminated during the 2003 playoffs. In a Cinderella run that would have made for a perfect Disney movie script, the Ducks fought their way to their first ever Stanley Cup Finals. The 7-seed Mighty Ducks shocked the hockey world by sweeping the defending champion Detroit Red Wings in the first round, carried by the superhuman goaltending of Jean-Sébastien Giguère and the heart and leadership of Paul Correa. In the finals against the New Jersey Devils, the run hit its peak. In Game 6, Correa was famously knocked unconscious by a controversial hit from Devils captain Scott Stevens, only to return to the ice minutes later and score an absolutely iconic goal to keep their season alive, helping force a Game 7. But ultimately, that's where the fairy tale ended, as the Mighty Ducks fell short of their Stanley Cup aspirations, losing Game 7 3-0. It was a heartbreaking end, but it marked the peak of Disney's sports empire. Coupled with the Anaheim Angels winning the World Series just months prior in 2002, Disney now had 2 championship-caliber franchises in Anaheim. However, for the executives at Disney, even trophies didn't matter. Spreadsheets and stock prices didn't care about heart or playoff magic. You would think a Cinderella run to the Stanley Cup Finals would cement the team's future. Instead, it was the final nail in the coffin. Despite the 2003 success, the novelty had worn off, as Disney's sports experiment was hemorrhaging money. Both the Ducks and the Angels were considered loss leaders, losing nearly $100 million over a 4-year period. By the early 2000s, running the Mighty Ducks had transitioned from a corporate masterclass into a massive financial liability. Ultimately, Disney's divorce from the Ducks came down to 3 factors. The first crack in the ice was the changing economics of the NHL. Back in 1993, the Ducks fielded a competitive team with a payroll of just $7.9 million. But by the early 2000s, players' salaries had exploded due to there being no salary cap. Disney suddenly found itself in a highly competitive, expensive league where their media synergy alone couldn't cover the rising costs. In the years immediately preceding the sale, Disney was reportedly losing tens of millions of dollars annually on the team. To make matters worse, the synergy loop had broken. The $800 million merchandise boom of the 93-94 season was an incredible peak, but it wasn't a sustainable baseline. Once the novelty of the movie franchise wore off, sales normalized. The 90s teal and eggplant fad was over, meaning the team couldn't rely on massive merchandise sales to cover their operational losses anymore. The final blow came from inside the boardroom. Building a Southern California sports empire had always been Michael Eisner's pet project, but as his tenure was coming to a close, the company's strategy shifted. Disney realized their goldmine was broadcasting sports, not owning the physical teams. Eisner admitted that running sports teams conflicted with shareholder value, and with Disney's stock price hitting an 8-year low in 2002, the pressure to shed non-core assets was immense. The situation worsened with the 2004 NHL lockout. Disney desperately tried to sell the team during this period, but received lowball offers of around $50 million, the exact same amount they had paid to enter the league a decade earlier. Finally, in 2005, a buyer emerged. Henry Samueli purchased the Mighty Ducks from Disney for a reported price of $75 million. Samueli's family already managed the arena, so as he put it, it seemed natural to purchase the team. The timeline here is what's quite telling. The Mighty Ducks were officially sold in June of 2005, and just a few months later, Michael Eisner was effectively forced out of the company. Roy E. Disney, nephew of Walt Disney, had resigned in protest years earlier, famously blasting Eisner for turning the House of Mouse into what he called a rapacious, soulless conglomerate. In many ways, the sale of the Mighty Ducks marked the final act of the Eisner era and the official end of Disney's strange, decade-long sports experiment. With the Walt Disney Company out of the picture, the changes were swift. Before the 2006-2007 season, the new owners dropped Mighty from the name, simply rebranding the team as the Anaheim Ducks, distancing themselves from the movie tie-in. And then, the ultimate irony happened. In their very first season post-Disney, the Anaheim Ducks won the Stanley Cup. They became the first California-based champion and the first West Coast winner since 1925. Disney had spent over a decade and millions of dollars trying to buy a championship and create a marketing loop, but in a cruel twist of fate, the team only reached the pinnacle the moment the corporation walked away. In the end, the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim were a unique experiment in corporate synergy, a team born from a movie, fueled by theme park sales, and ultimately abandoned when the spreadsheets stopped making sense. While the Mighty name is gone, the franchise remains, a permanent reminder of the time a mouse tried to play hockey.